What up, everybody? We are back. Here we go for bigger, better business. And today we're actually going to talk about a topic that is very important for just not only as you as an individual, but us as a nation, as a people. And we're going to talk about mental health. We're going to talk about the importance of um, recognizing mental health issues, what goes into the career field, what goes into as an individual, just dealing with the challenges that come with mental health. I'm actually going to be speaking to a friend of mine. Her name is Nelli, and we're going to talk about what it's like being a mental health therapist. We're going to talk about different things involved in the industry and just how can we help people when it comes to their mental health in this nation. So let me go on and get her in. Let's see. Dun, 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 dun. Waiting for her to approve. You guys, I'm excited about this conversation. It's something I've been wanting to have for a while now, and she's in. How you doing?
Hi,
Hi,
Mark.
can you
How
hear
are
me?
you? Yes, I could hear you. Let me
You can
make
hear
it
me. Okay,
here.
I'm gonna make sure we're all
Yeah,
good. I'm doing well. I'm
we're
doing well.
good.
How are you doing?
I'm good, just crazy busy, but let's do this.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I didn't give too long of an introduction, but I was just telling everybody today we're going to talk about mental health. We're going to talk about the challenges that come behind mental health. But I wanted to personally talk to a therapist, a mental health therapist that I know who is awesome, who is amazing, which is yourself, Miss Nelly. And I just got some questions to ask you. I don't ever tell people I know everything because I really don't. I'm always a student of different areas of life. Mental health isn't one of my specialties. And so I like to call and I like to ask people about different topics. And so I know you and I discussed it maybe a couple of weeks ago about getting on and chatting about it because I got some good questions that I want to ask you about mental health, what goes into the career, what goes into the challenges around it. I know we're not going to knock it all out in an hour, but I pray that whatever information we do give out to anybody who watches this either today, when I post it in the future, man, we get some questions answered. And in the end, man, hopefully somebody seeks help. Or if you're an individual, you know someone who's facing a mental health challenge, you can help them seek help because I know it works both ways. You can either be the person who needs the help or the person that does the helping. So, with that being said, Miss Nelly, go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell us about yourself, and then we'll go from there.
Oh my, what do you want to know?
Who you are, where you
Um,
from, what's your favorite color? No, just who you are. As far as
Let
your,
me
your
break it down.
title, yeah, as far as your title, as far as your education and things of that nature.
Okay, perfect. So my whole name is Nelly, but mostly people call me Nelly. I am a mental health therapist and licensed clinical social worker. So um, just kind of a little bit of background. I have a master's in social work, and that's how I got into the field. And once you get your degree, you choose a route. The beautiful thing about social work is it's such a big umbrella that you could go anywhere, right? You could do jails, government agencies, nonprofits, hospitals, schools. But in this case, for me, I chose a clinical route, which was mental health. And after a while, you accumulate a certain amount of hours. I think it's like 3,000 hours of direct service of therapy. And then you do a bunch of other things here and there to become qualified. You take like a 4-hour exam, you pass it, and you become a licensed clinical social worker. So I had to go through all of that. And here I am. I work in LA County, so most of my patients are in East LA, South Central, Compton, um,
Okay.
some in more of the outskirts of the county, but just kind of mostly LA County, the heart of South Central, and those, tougher areas. So,
There you go.
um, yeah, so, yeah, that's where I'm at.
I appreciate no, thank you. That was a lot. And again, what this talk to, I just want people to understand that hey, I might bounce around a little bit. I might ask, questions here and there. But again, I'm just curious to know about not only what it takes to not only be a therapist and to work with people, but what is it like in a therapy session? What is it like when you say speak with a client or you go out and help a family? Like, what is that normal routine? Because when I think of therapy, I'll just say it right now. I've personally never been to therapy. My idea of seeking help is I have a crowd of mentors who are in different backgrounds. Most of my I'll say my top 5 mentors are believers. And so I'm more of seeking them for counseling because I know they're going to give me biblical references and biblical counseling. I did a call with one of my mentors, Robert Strong. Check out that interview, everyone. But I don't necessarily go sit with a therapist. Now, have I ever thought about it? Yes. And we'll talk about that later. But when you're sitting down with these different clients or these different people, like, is this like where they sit in a room and they make you lean back on the chair and they say, you know, tell me about your problems? Or is this, you know, just a casual conversation kind of like we're having now? Like, I'm actually curious, how does a session go? How does it work when it goes into that one-on-one interaction with the client? Or do you call them clients? I don't know. I call them clients. What do you call them?
Clients or patients, both. The whole couch, you know, tell me your things. That's kind of movie, right? That's Hollywood. Very rare. I guess if you do not in my line of practice, but if you do like private therapy, most likely you'll be in a, you know, in an office space like that. But for me, I work at a nonprofit that it's like whenever, whatever. So that means I actually go to the client's home and provide the service and the comfort of their home, which is a big luxury, I would say. But I do go to the home, and that's where we provide therapy. Now, because of COVID, obviously things have changed. So now we're providing teletherapy. So all of our sessions are through Zoom. So I'm here, you know, talking to them, and like this is kind of that conversation. We check in. Obviously, we're working towards a goal. We address the goal. We see, you know, what happened this week. How does it relate to the goal? You know, and depending on what the issues they're having, it could. My patients vary from, like, I think my youngest right now is a 6-year-old, and my oldest, not that old, like in their 30s. So, okay. I go from like really older, like I just discharged like a 60-something-year-old. So it's the whole lifespan. But yeah, it's depending on different mental health issues. It's just either talk therapy or I'm using a special type of therapy, but it's a lot of talking, a lot of exploring, a lot of listening. And we have a good laugh here and there. We, you know, for the younger ones, we play games, and through play therapy is a little different. But it just depends on the individual. So that's what kind of.
Okay, now I want to dive into, again, you said a couple of things. You said laugh therapy, play therapy. Is there like multiple different therapies? Is there like a top 5? Like, I want to know, what does that mean? Like when you say laugh therapy, play therapy? I mean, just imagine, you know, beyond COVID and all this craziness, like you're sitting down with a client. What does that mean? Like, how do you know somebody needs laugh therapy or play therapy? How do you know somebody, like, is this based on the file that you're giving to them, or is this built over a relationship that what you have with them? How do you know which one to use, and what are the different types of therapy that you use?
Okay. So, just so people don't get it wrong, I said kind of laughing, like, you know, like just the interaction. But the actual type of therapies, there's so many different kinds. Like, okay. But one of my favorite that I use a lot is cognitive behavioral therapy, and it's basically the power of learning how to control your thoughts, which influence your emotions, which influence your behavior. So that's my all-time favorite. There's a lot of different specialties, especially with trauma. If you have a lot of like really severe trauma, there's more of the trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapy. There's a lot of like processing. There's I would say like every therapist specializes on something and gets certified for additional something in addition to their practice. So there's a lot of like rapid eye movement. If you know, like if there's so much, I don't know how to put it into it.
I can imagine. That's why I'm like, is it a broad spectrum, or is it something that you can condense? Okay.
Yeah, so yeah, there's so many different kinds, but when let's say I have a patient that comes to me and and they have like serious psychotic issues, and I never
Okay.
work with them, that's where I'm gonna have a conversation with my supervisor and say, hey, I'm not equipped to work with this client. Like, how can we support this client so they can get the services they need, right? And the difficulty in that sense is that when we get these clients that are like substance users, in addition to a mental health aspect, right, or they're severely
Mm-hmm.
psychotic where they need to be regulated with medication first, then that's when we work along our psychiatrists in our agency to get them to a place where they could actually actively process.
Mm-hmm.
But on a regular basis, when that's not the issue, it's just um, we've been equipped to figure out, okay, what does this person need? If,
Mm-hmm.
for example, you come in with anxiety, and I'm like, okay, well, we need to do exposure therapy. That's for sure
Mm-hmm.
going to help you with anxiety. You come in with depression, okay, we're going to do cognitive behavioral therapy. That's the best one for depression, So
Okay.
it depends on each thing, and there's such a wide variety. And as a therapist, depending on where you work, you become certified in different like modules. So yeah, it's
Okay.
it's a
No,
little
that's good.
complicated.
That answers my question because again, I'm thinking again, this is just my own personal views.
Mhm.
I come from a background where I worked in the jails, as an officer. Most of you guys followed me for a while. I worked in, Riverside County jail system for 3 years. So I worked on the mental health floor. I saw people from just, your everyday anxiety, stress levels. I mean, they committed the crime, but they had your everyday anxiety, stress levels. You can just tell like they were completely functional. Just, hey, they made a mistake. They're doing their time. They'll get out. Then I talked to those people who were like, I mean, killers, like 1,000-yard stare. I would walk by their cell, look straight through me. Some days they, oh, what up, Cooks? They're just, and then some days it's like I know they wanted to hurt me very badly. So I dealt with people from different spectrums of mental health, and I know it's a large span. And then
Mhm.
I also worked on the streets for patrol, so I was actively seeing people out on the streets in their regular functions. But there would be calls that I'll get. I remember one call I was in Long Beach, and I'm just sharing this story with you guys. Is we were going down Pine Street, and I get a call saying there's a lady naked in the middle of the road holding a knife, right? And I'm probably like 45 seconds away, right? Now my sergeant, another officer already there. One officer has a taser, and my sergeant just like regular OG style, no weapon, no nothing, talking to the person. So if you know Pine Street, I'm blazing down Pine Street, and I get there, and my sergeant like talks her to drop the knife. We handcuff her, and it was super chill. But here's the great part of the story, right? I'm talking to her, and I'm just like, hey, Jane Doe, what's your name? Won't give me her name. What's your birthday? Won't give me her birthday. Where are you from? Won't tell me where she's from. But for some reason, I heard her say the name Barack Obama. Come to find out, she thought I was Barack Obama. So I would say to her, hey, Barack Obama wants your name. Oh, my name is Ashley Smith. Barack Obama wants your date of birth. Oh, my birthday is June 10th, 1987, right? And I'm talking to her while taking en route to a mental health facility. But that was the type of people I would come and interact with. And the challenge with that, especially in this world today, especially with officers that they're dealing with, is that we're dealing with people who have serious issues, who have serious background of having mental health issues, and we want to do our best to help them and protect them. But it's not always just the criminals or the bad people that deal with it. It's your everyday person that you talk to every single day. So my question is it usually trauma? Is it usually your parents, sad to say? Is it usually stress at your house? Like, I know, again, I'm covering a wide area, but what are just some
Mhm.
common reasons people come in? Because I know it's a lot of different things, but my own personal experience, it was either trauma, drug abuse, or they just had a terrible childhood. So what are some things that you notice or that you see in your career field that, you recognize like, dang, like I see that a lot?
No, I think you hit it right in the nail. Like, really poor childhood experiences,
Mm-hmm.
um, a lot of drug abuse, a lot of criminal activity. When a child, so many people, ask, like, for the shootings, we had so much mass shootings, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, why, how are they crazy? I can't believe they did it. But you grow up with that normalized behavior.
Mm-hmm.
You become accustomed to that life. That's it's not abnormal, right? So
Right.
yes, we see a lot of trauma, we see a lot of abuse. Sexual abuse, sadly, is pretty prevalent.
Mm-hmm.
Incest within families, that a lot of poor parent-child relationships, that's a huge one. So a lot of teens with suicidal ideation.
Mm-hmm.
I have that a lot on my caseload. Um, and a lot of anxiety, especially how the world is. And, just kind of those factors. If you don't feel supported, if you feel like you can't speak to anybody, it starts getting to you, and then you're conditioned to feel that you have to do it alone and that you have to be strong, or if you say or speak out, you're weak. So you just keep internalizing these, and it just gets worse and worse and worse. So, but that's pretty much trauma, poor childhood relationships. It's rare when it's, oh, you've been having a great life and now you're an adult and something happens that's horrible,
Mm-hmm.
and then you come into services.
Mm-hmm.
It's coming from a long time, This is it has been, you just haven't dealt with it. So
Got
now
no, I
yeah.
got you. I got you. Now I want to dive into that, and again, this is something that being a parent concerns not concerns me, but it's something I want to be aware of. As many of you guys know, again, I have a 6-year-old son, Joshua Cook. Shout out to young Spider-Man. But I also too worked at a facility for a little bit where I personally worked with children who dealt with a lot of trauma. And I mean, we're talking about from the age of, well, they were there, they were older. I think the youngest we had was like 8 or 9, but from the age of 3 they've dealt with trauma. And we're talking about sexual abuse. There was girls who were sexually exploited. They were literally put out there in those streets, 9, 10, 11, 12 years old. We're talking about parental abuse, and just being in that environment, like, it hurt my heart to see like just these kids in this facility. And one thing to understand, Nelly, is that a lot of these facilities, they're full, or they're max capacity, or there's not a lot of facilities to hold these kids. So I'm just wondering, if a kid goes to that type of trauma, even as an age of 3, 4 years old, because I knew there was a child in there where she was probably about 13, 14 years old, but she had the mental, I would say that, not the mental strength, but the brain of a 3-year-old, right? And that was her function. And I just wonder, like, are these kids, even through years and years and years of therapy, are we able to help them, or are they almost pretty much stuck in that state, or stuck in that mentality of knowing that, man, all I know is being sexually exploited. All I know is drugs. All I know is that an adult or somebody older than me is abusive, and I have to do what they say or they will abuse me. I mean, I know that's a little deep, but I've always just been curious about that. Like, are they stuck there? Can they receive enough mental health? Is this something that goes into adulthood? Like, kind of, how does that work, real briefly?
Well, if especially when this trauma happens very early in life,
Mm-hmm.
if the environment doesn't change or the situation doesn't change, it's not like you can't extinguish it. It's still going to be there, and it's going to
Mm-hmm.
cause certain issues as an adult, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
even in the simple fact that we learn about trust in the first year and a half of life.
Really?
It's
Okay.
so fundamental, yes, with attachment. And that's where we develop this, like, can we surpass this milestone? Have we built a trusting relationship? And then we can move on to the next one, right? Being autonomous and stuff like that. So when you have a child that experiences trauma, um, it's really hard to, um, it's not impossible to have them have a healthy adulthood and adolescence, but most of the time it doesn't change within this time frame.
Oh, okay.
Usually it's to adulthood where you have this child. Now you're seeing it as a for example, we have a 5-year-old, right? Gets
Mm-hmm.
abused, and not even sexually, just physically abused, constantly verbally abused, grows up with this mentality that I have to be aggressive. Now you're seeing these behaviors, and most of the time, because the parents don't go in there and save the child, because that's the normal the
Mm-hmm.
condition of his family. So we just keep seeing these patterns, intergenerational, um, continue, and until like maybe the school intervenes and say, hey, their behavior is so bad, like they need therapy.
Mm-hmm.
And until somebody actually intervenes, and then the parents are like, okay, yeah. But sometimes the hardest thing about mental health, and it's what I really quickly realized when I got into the field, is that not everybody's ready to be
Mm-hmm.
helped.
Really?
So, really. So, because we do get patients from Department of Mental Health, we do get patients, from that are core mandated, and they still feel like even though they're in the situation, they still feel like it's okay, like there's nothing
Mm-hmm.
wrong. And you know I almost and I'll share this just to kind of make a point. Like I had a teenager that I almost lost to suicide, and it was just because the relationship with the mom was so bad, and the mom
Mm-hmm.
didn't believe that she had depression, that she was just lazy, and she just labeled
Mm-hmm.
her as like, like that. So when it comes to the environment not changing, the people that you care the most, usually your parents that don't intervene, or somebody else, it could be a friend, it could be an aunt, somebody that makes the huge difference, right? Like how we
Mm-hmm.
hear it only takes one person, it
Mm-hmm.
really takes that one good person to make a difference when there's so much trauma. But sadly, really, really sadly, majority of the time, that person doesn't come in, and it just, we have this person that now it's an adult, has toxic relationships
Mm-hmm.
constantly, in maybe in a domestic violence relationship,
Mm-hmm.
and drugs and things like that. So, yeah,
Okay, well,
sadly.
I do. I'm curious to know because I've thought about this. Say, I don't know if there's necessarily levels of trauma. I know everybody experiences their different levels of trauma. Everybody has their experience of what they deal with in their lives. But what would you say is like the earliest age for a child to receive therapy? Like, what is the earliest age for you to send a child to a therapist or a mental health therapist? And even if their trauma isn't like, I don't want to say like high level, like on a scale of 1 to 10, it's maybe like a 2 or 3, but you notice something. What is the earliest
Hmm.
age you can send you? I don't want to say you recommend because I don't want to give out recommendations, but what would you say in
Hmm.
your own on your own views, like the earliest age to be like, okay, I recognize something. I want my child or my niece or nephew or whoever it may be to go see a therapist and maybe possibly, talk about something or deal with an issue that I see now. What would you say is the earliest age for that?
Well, that's a good question, because it differentiates. If you have a child that experienced trauma, and that trauma is affecting their developmental milestones, then that's where you see the regional center coming in before the age of 3. And they're
Mm-hmm.
helping them with their behavioral and just kind of learning how to develop those independent skills, and being able to walk and stuff like that. Now, after that, you get the kids that are now vocal, right?
Mm-hmm.
3, 4-year-olds, they could express more. Around 5 and 6, you could definitely see them that they have the capacity to have the language to express how they really feel, or
Mm-hmm.
So it really varies. If it's younger than 3, definitely, if they're having if it's being affected to their developmental milestones, I would say yes, take them to therapy. Occupational therapy is usually the one for them.
Okay.
But then afterwards, if it's like, I think a 5-year-old, as long as they're vocal, that they could actually process. Because even so, if I have a 4-year-old, we're doing play therapy, and it's so incredible. We think a huge aspect of the little ones is that parents think, oh, they don't know, they're too young, they don't understand what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, not in your capacity, but in a child's viewpoint of and view of the world, yes, they understand.
Yes.
So it's not about, oh, I did something wrong. It's about, I'm bad or I'm good, right? In their world. So I if I would say at any type of age, usually the youngest ones, we work with the parents to really help them learn how to soothe, learn how to build that trust, learn how to build that bond, the attachment, right?
Hmm.
Again, safety and trust. But if they're a little older, more vocal, we're doing play therapy. Now, if we're 6 and older, like your son,
Hmm.
he's more able to verbalize how he feels. And
Oh
now
yes.
we're actually doing, yeah, right? We're in between play therapy and actually having conversation, right? And it's a lot of building self-awareness of teaching them more of a I love working with the little ones, more of expression of the basics of sad, mad, and or happy, right?
Hmm.
We say, how do you feel when you're nervous, and how do you feel when you're scared, or what does it mean to be terrified, like the levels, mad, angry, terrified, and
Mm,
it really teach them how to express how they feel, so they
that's
could
good.
really, give them power in their voice. Um, and yeah, that usually takes away any, um, it helps them process. And along with other interventions, it's depending again on what happened to them, we'll, you know, work with it. But
I got.
I would say any age, as long as if something happened, don't let it just fly. Like it's, yeah, you should
Okay.
address it.
Got you.
Yeah.
And the crazy thing is, I talk about it all the time, whether it be on my Instagram or wherever it may be. I talk about the communication level between my son and I because I always wanted to be open. I always want him to be able to express to me how he's feeling, what's he doing. Even when I have to pow him, like I tell him, like, look, like this is what I don't like. This is what I saw. This is how we can get better. This is, I tell him, if you watch me, as a cooks, man, like we gotta be nice to people. We gotta respect people. We gotta respect people. We gotta, talk with confidence. We gotta, don't panic in
Mhm.
certain situations. Like I tell him different things, but I also tell him like, if you have a problem, you have an issue, like please come and talk to me. And he talks, and he tells me the truth. He tells me the absolute truth. I actually heard a saying that says, if you're making a challenging decision, ask a child because they may not know all the information, but they'll tell you the facts. And I love that because my son definitely tells me the truth. He tells me the facts and he keeps it
Yeah.
straightforward with me. And I never assume because he's a child that he doesn't know what's going on because he knows. Like he asked me some questions the other day, and I was like, "Dang, you pay attention to that?" And I was like, and I gave him a straight, honest answer, but I would have never thought he paid
Mhm.
attention to it. But he said, "Daddy, why ABC XYZ?" And I was like, "Dang, I thought you never noticed that." But I appreciate that. So, hey, when it comes to kids, trust me,
Yeah.
adults, parents, they're watching. But I do want to shift to adults because something that I personally see and deal with, and I know the world deals with, is the challenges you face as an adult. Because when you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s, a lot of times you're set in your ways. A lot of times that trauma is set in. And we hear about celebrities like the Heath Ledgers and the Robin Williams, and you're thinking like, how does a Robin Williams take his life? Like he was the funniest guy in the world. He was the most talented. Like to me, top two of all time to me when it comes to just pure talent. And I'm like, how does
Mhm.
somebody like a Robin Williams get to the point to where he can't live? And that's something that's always challenged me is how do we know? What are the signs? I mean, I know I personally don't know Robin Williams, but I am willing to say that there's probably somebody in my life battling depression. There's probably somebody in my life, like you said, who's having issues dealing with anxiety or communicating. There's probably somebody in my life who's wanting me to say, "Hey, Mark, how?" Or I say, "Hey, so and so, how are you doing?" And they just want to pour their hearts out. They want to open up, but they might be afraid. So my question is, how do I, or just any individual, help that person? How do I maybe notice a sign as for an adult? Or is there certain words that they may say, and then when they say it, I can go, okay, this is where I need to put my own problems, my own issues, this whole craziness is going on in the world, and I need to be there for that person. How do I do these things? Like, what are some signs? What are some things I can say to recognize that? Because I personally, I don't think I know somebody close to me that's committed suicide or really hurt themselves like that, but I don't want to get that phone call. And I don't want to hear
Mhm.
that, see that post about somebody doing that to themselves. So I always want to be of service to other people. So I know that's kind of a long question, but I'm hoping you understand, like, what can we do?
Um, where do I start? So, um, It's tricky with adults, right? I think our biggest fear is that, especially in this day and age, is that we have to have it all together,
Mm-hmm.
right? And if social media, we display what we want people to see, not what we
Get me
actually
started on
are
social media.
or how we feel, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, but when it comes to actually paying attention to the signs, I think that's where it gets a little tricky because everybody's different. But now, if you have, um, there's a lot of small things that you could pick up on, right? If it's a good friend, if it's somebody that you know and you're familiar with their behavioral patterns, I see people by patterns because that as humans we repeat patterns of what we
Mm-hmm.
know, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so let's say you have a friend and they reach out to you all the time and all of a sudden they've been missing for a while. Like that's kind of a sign for you to like, hey, let me reach out. Maybe they're really busy, maybe something's really going on, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, if this is somebody that you see on a day-to-day basis and you're clueless, right? Because sometimes we're so stuck in our world, our lane, and we're like cha 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 cha, and nothing, we're oblivious to other people and what they're going through. Um, but it's just like, hey man, or how you doing, And if oh, I'm good, like follow-up questions, like, yeah, what have you been up to? And
Mm-hmm.
just kind of having an open conversation, because if you say, um, we as clinicians, we're like, hey, are you good? We're like, yeah. No, are you good? Good, right? So we have that.
Yeah.
Um, but when you don't have that connection, it's about those follow-up questions, like if they're kind of quiet, right? And or if they just look tired, or they haven't really been showing up like they used to, like just kind of those small things that you want to pick up. Because with like Robert Williams, right? He's a celebrity. We're talking about somebody that it's he's learned how to act. He has that,
Mm-hmm. Ah,
and
yeah.
right, and
Yes.
people perceived it as such, like they don't know the human William, they know the actor, right? So
Yeah.
when it comes to that, like we we know him for him as an actor and a happy person, but that was his act, that was his job. So
Yeah.
we can't see, oh, what was the actual Williams struggling with, because that's not the man we knew, right? So that's where it becomes difficult. um but when it's close people, yeah, nobody ever wants to get that call at
Yeah.
all, right? It's the
No,
most
not at all.
terrifying call, and, you know um but just picking up things, having conversations, asking how you doing. And sometimes, you just kind of pick up even people that follow me. Like I'm scrolling through social media and I see a certain post, right? And it's like, oh, that person's kind of struggling with that. Like I'm so trained to see that with that
Um,
eye, right? That it's easy for me to just say, oh, okay, maybe they're battling that, right? And sometimes I reach out, sometimes I don't, or just show some love. Because when you're really um, feeling depressed, because I really like something that you said. I can't think of it right now, but it just kind of goes back to, we deal with our mental health in a way where we regress to a certain aspect of what we know, right?
mhm,
And if that regression means a negative core belief, meaning I'm not good enough, or I'm a failure, or this always happens to me, or I don't deserve love, just kind of that
mm,
negative core belief that you grew up to. Um, if you regress to that, like that's where you could spiral down very quickly. And a lot of
mm,
people are not aware, don't have that consciousness of what are my core beliefs and what do I regress to. They just know that if they just got rejected, they're like, I'm gonna go get drunk and F everybody and
mhm.
I'm good, like I'm good. But no, no, you're not good. So
Yeah, no, I like
just
that.
kind of that, those things. But even with adults, just um, the biggest things that I find that helps with the healing of depression especially, is the building of consciousness of where those feelings come from.
Mm,
Because you
I
could
like
feel
that.
disrespected, you could feel hurt, you could feel disappointed, but those feelings you've learned to mask them with anger. So people are just seeing you mad, and then you're dealing with the anger, but you're not dealing with the underlying emotion. And I'm one of the my in my practice, I love getting to the bottom of the bottom. Like,
Yes.
let's pull these weeds, let's get to the root of this problem,
Now
and
you're
we're gonna
talking.
take it
Yes.
way back, right?
Yes.
So, even in our conversations, I feel like you picked that up, right? When we had our own conversation. So it's kind of those things that I'm like, okay, let's really see what's going on. And yeah, it's like the iceberg, right? Like, we see the top, but we don't see how deep and how, strong that is. So I always tell my clients, if your anger is like the Titanic, if that little iceberg was able to break that Titanic in two, look how much damage it could cause in your life and in your relationship. So let's actually deal with it so we don't have to go there. And I love analogies, and that's what really helps people. So yeah, um, I don't know what else.
No, no.
I
See,
go
now,
off on
okay, now the
tangents. I'm
interview
sorry.
has started. Now, okay, we got all the technical stuff out the way because now you're talking my language. Like, now you're speaking my language when it comes to the layers, right? That's something I've had to
Mhm.
learn over time. Even with myself, I just put myself on blast. If anybody follows me, I'll put myself on blast first. Is I have layers and layers of where stuff comes from. So a lot of issues and things that I deal with, I know it's not just surface level. Like, there's things that led up to that point that I have to deal with. And when you talked about core beliefs, like, oh my God, like, if you go through a certain issue, and let's just say you're in an abusive relationship, right? You're a
Mhm.
girl or your guy, and your other spouse is abusive, and it's like every guy that you date is a bad person, or every guy that you date, is a cheater. Every guy that you date is this, and this. Let's go all the way back to your first boyfriend, your second girlfriend, your third boyfriend, your fourth. Like, you keep dating these guys or these girls that are the exact same. Let's go back and look at something, because it might not be that person that you're dating, or you might simply just be attracting that person. Like, what are you used to? Well, my mom used to abuse me, or my dad used to abuse me, or the man who said he loved me when I was 6 was abusive. So it goes all the way back. Now I'm in my 30s and 40s, and I've had multiple abusive relationships, or I have multiple abusive problems with
Mhm.
alcohol. Like, let's go back to what keeps
Yep.
triggering you finding that person, or you talk about anger. Like, if anger is all you've ever known, and it could have stopped for 10 years, but then it picks back up and you're like, why am I so angry? It's because you never dealt with that, like, back when you were 10 or you were
Mhm.
15. That's what I like.
Mhm.
That's literally why a lot of times people ask me, like, why do you do motivational speaking? I was like, I'm not just a motivational speaker. I want to inspire you to really find out, like, dig deep inside of you. And I want to inspire you to not only be a better person, but, like, let's get rid of some of those skeletons. Let's get rid of some of that hurt and that pain. And I use myself as
Right.
an example a lot of times, because I've experienced my level of hurt and pain. I've experienced my level of disappointment, but I've learned through
Mhm.
my mentors, or my therapists, whatever you want to call them, how to pull that pain out. Trust me, Nelly, I have many of days where I've just cried in the car, and I've just had to call my
Good.
therapist, or not therapist, but my mentors, and like, what's wrong? And then after we start talking, he'd be like, boom, there it is. You haven't dealt with that. You see that? You haven't dealt with that. And then I deal with it and I work on
Mhm.
it. And then when another problem comes up, it's like, I know what mistake not to make. And that's the problem. Like I said, that's the problem that I see, Nelly, is so many people don't even get to the root. Like, communication, you mentioned that, Nelly. Some people don't understand the true value of communicate. Just us talking. Like, I met you.
Mhm.
I met you through mutual friends, Devon and Jasmine, right? And so I've been
Mhm.
following you. I love seeing your post. And then you commented on a post about an IG live that I did. And then I started seeing that you were doing your 75-day challenge, and you were firing me up because I wasn't going to the gym. I was like, oh, COVID shut down 24 hours and I'm pissed. But you kept every day, you kept every day posting working, telling everybody to get off their butts. And I'm like, I'm Mr. Motivational, right? But I was like, I love that energy that you were giving. I love that consistency that you were giving. Then we started talking about books, and I'm a big book nerd, but I was able to feed off of you and use your energy. Our communication wasn't, oh, we've been best friends our whole lives. I've barely
Right.
like really been talking to you for maybe like a month, month and a half, but it's because our
Mm-hmm.
month and a half relationship, you've inspired me in so many different ways. So just the communication doesn't have to be we talk every day, but when you find
Right.
somebody where like, hey, we got books, we got working out and training together, let's go.
Yeah.
That is so important. I know I went over a lot, guys, but she started talking in my area of specialty. Communication, core beliefs
Yeah.
are so important, everybody. Like if you don't take anything else from that, listen to what she says about layers. Like, let's dig. Let's dig. So I don't know if you want to elaborate on that, but that when you said that, I was like, yep, now she's talking to my spirit. Like being aware of it, like digging deep and recognize. And sometimes, Nelly, I'm gonna tell you, it hurts. Like it
Ooh.
hurts when you got mama issues, when you got daddy issues. You know what I'm saying? Like it hurts when you gotta dig. And
Who
sometimes you
doesn't
see,
have it?
yeah, you'll see a grown man cry, right? But it hurts when you gotta
Good.
dig. Yeah, but when you dig that up and you realize, one, I got a son. I'm gonna be a great flipping father, and nobody's gonna stop me. Two, I understand that my relationship with my mother can affect my relationship with my future wife and any girl that I date in that process. I gotta deal with that because why would I want to pull a girl into that hurt and that pain? And she might see that I'm a good guy in all these different areas, but there's that one thing that I can't do. And I always use myself as an example. Um, we'll answer that question. But I was use myself as an example. When I used to be in relationships and I would get in a fight with women, I would just leave. I would just walk away. I would literally just put my shoes on or I'll leave this. I would just leave. That's because that's what I did as a kid, as an adult, you know, as a teenager, as a young adult. When I would fight and bicker with them, I always knew, hey, Nelly, I'm out. I'm not going to put my hands on you. I'm out. I'm leaving, right? But then I realized as I got older, like you can't resolve problems like that with the woman. Like they need you to communicate as a man, fellas. They need you to communicate with them. If you got to take 2 minutes to cool down, yes, you cool down, but they physically need you to say,
Yeah.
hey, this is what I observed. This is my mistake. This is how I'm going to correct it. Give me a hug. Let's go get some tacos. You know what I'm saying? Like they need that, but that took me
Yeah.
years. And again, I know I'm going on and on, but I'm just telling you guys, like she started talking
Yes.
my language. She addressed something that I want you to hear is you got to get down there and dig and see what the root of the problem is mentally, because that might have been my own version of my mental health issue. And then once you uncover that, oh my God, you're ready to rock and roll. So I don't
Yeah.
know if you want to address that a little bit. I know we only got like 15 minutes, but you got me fired up. So I don't know if you want to address anything I said. Again, I'm an open book. You can use me as an example, but
Yes.
go ahead. Then we have a question.
Yeah. No, it's it's crazy because if if we actually got to the bottom of each of our, like depths, I think this world will be very, very different. Because we live in such a society where everything's go, go, go. Everybody is, distracted. Everything's so easy. We have a phone, men and women don't heal after bad relationships. They go looking for the next, like this, Why? Because it's available. But have you done the work? I can't even talk. The work to heal. And that's like the most powerful thing, right?
Yeah.
And like you say, it goes beyond just our current experiences. It goes back to how our relationships were with our fathers. Were they present? Were they not? Were our mothers, right? Our siblings, do we really know what a healthy relationship looks like? Like, luckily for me, I've learned all through all this. Like I did a bachelor's, I did two different bachelors, but one of them was in family life education. It's all about relationships and marriage. And I learned about love languages and really like
Mm.
talking to your partner and all of these things. And it's about really one, communicating what you need, communicating your feelings. But there's a lot of shame and guilt and even
Mm-hmm.
in that, right? Um, how to show up for people. I think that's if you're the kind of person that really likes to just sit and have undivided attention, right? And I'm just like, like I don't, I feel like you're too clingy, Mark. And then it's like, I don't want to deal with him. Like, let me break up with him, right? And it's like, no, like that was your way of showing me like that you wanted to show be loved, right? And I
Exactly.
like maybe different attention. So it just kind of goes all bad. But when we're dealing with these layers, that's why I love COVID. Honestly, COVID was a blessing in disguise for me, because it made so many of us just stop and
Hmm.
be like, oh, you haven't dealt with this for a long time.
Yes.
And you're like, so many people came more to therapy because they were like,
Really.
holy shit, I have a lot to
Really.
do. A lot of, and along with other stressors, right? But just kind of really dealing with the stuff that you haven't dealt with because you're so distracted or busy,
Hmm.
right, with other things. Um, and sometimes people will go 50 years, 60 years without really realizing everything that they've been through. And then something happens really bad.
Yes.
And then it's like, oh my God,
Yeah.
like I can't believe like I failed. And right, I failed as a parent, I failed as a mother, I failed as a sister, I failed as a daughter, like, and it hits you. But with all these layers, we want to make sure that we're picking up. It's hard for somebody to realize that, right? Like you said, they came to
Hmm.
a point where you kept doing these patterns, right? Behavioral patterns in your relations of I'm gonna be avoidant because my attachment to my mother was an avoidant, right? Attachment. Now I'm doing this with my relationships. I don't know. I'm just putting it as an example,
No,
right?
no, you like I
Um,
said, no, go ahead.
but yeah, so it was kind of like a hey, let's, um, what are these patterns that you keep repeating that you don't like that are giving you a life where you're happy? The end. Okay, there's something there. How do we deal with this? Because if it's within relationships, right? If you feel like you keep getting fired, you feel like you're not good enough, that you can't take chances or risks, like what's holding you back?
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have an education and just going and working from job to job, like there's more to life than that. And
Hmm.
until you take a step back and say, is this there? Is this it? Right? Am I
Hmm.
doing it right?
Hmm.
Um, then you kind of, figure that something's off. But a lot of people don't ever want to go to therapy, right? There's some type of shame, I don't need to tell a stranger my business or why did, I'm good. And that's the thing, like we grow up with things being normalized and conditioned
There it is.
that we believe we have to have it all. Like we got it. I don't need nobody else. I'm gonna figure this out. But I tell people like therapy is like when you finally go to the gym and you get a fitness person, right? Like
Hmm.
a instructor or whatever,
Hmm.
because you tried it yourself and it's like you try different things. They don't work. You kind of, if you're trying to lose weight, you come back to the same way. You try different diets, they don't work. And it's like, yeah, you could try to do it by yourself, but there's a point where if you can't do it by yourself, then maybe you do need to have somebody, right? If probably if I have two best friends, three, and two of them are licensed clinicians too. So if I didn't have them, I'd probably be in therapy too, because that's what we talk, right? All day. I work with too many therapists that we could just process stuff. And going to grad school, you have to face your stuff. Really, you have to.
Hmm.
You do. You when you start having therapy, you're like, oh crap, I have to deal with my stuff too. So if you're trying to be a therapist, be ready to do the work, So, but I think it's been the most beautiful part of my life, the growth that I've gotten. So it's kind of really realizing what's wrong and just look at your patterns. look at your patterns and see what area of your life it doesn't serve you. And if you're unhappy or you don't love yourself, or you're not happy with who you are or where you're at, like,
Mm,
we got to step up our game. You got to try something different. And if, asking for help, sometimes that's even hard, but um, therapy's it's not, it's perceived as, oh my God, you're crazy and something's wrong with you, like really bad, right? I'm
hmm.
like, therapy, like I showed you in my post, is like, it's being human and trying to figure it out.
I'm
Because
trying to
if you
figure it
have it
out.
figured
Yes.
out, how? Tell us how, because we're all, if you had a beautiful childhood, you could be in your 30s, 50s, and something tragic happens, and then you need therapy, right? Like, but it it's just part of being human. Something bad is going to happen to you.
Yeah.
And if
You're gonna
you
face
can't dodge that bullet, you're not human. Like, hold up.
it.
Right? So, um, but it's hard. And I love the whole, well, like I told you, the iceberg and the cognitive behavioral therapy, just to kind of, I always go back to like, okay, tell me what thought that brought up. Okay, that I'm not good enough. Okay, how does that make you feel? And you're like, um, disappointed. And then I go into like, okay, what other things make you feel disappointed? And then that opens more and more and more. And that's the beauty of it, that everything's interconnected. And we have the tendency to say, oh no, well, that I'm good, but this I could work on, but that I'm really good. And it's like, no, everything's connected. If you're not good
Mhm.
here, if you're not,
Mm.
you don't have good relationships in your workplace, something's off. You don't have
Bars.
amazing relationships at home, right?
Bars.
Or with
Yes.
your
Yes.
friends. So, um, you got some work to do in that department.
Yes. Bars. No, no.
So,
And you were kind of answering the question that somebody asked, was about different tricks and follow-up tips to go on as far as, approaching a friend or somebody dealing with issues. Something that you repeatedly say is the example of the iceberg. And I like the example. I love the example of the personal trainer. You know what I'm saying? Is you've been doing it the same way your whole, like, you guys know I'm in the fitness world. I used to be a personal trainer, and I always ask them this when they always talking about, oh, I can lose weight, I used to work out and did it, but you're overweight or obese, and you come to me for help, or you're asking me these questions, but I'm like, look, like,
mhm,
you've tried doing it your way this whole time, and it's not working. That's why you're
mhm,
seeking help. So I would say for anybody who's wondering, first, metaphors, analogies, like having examples of saying, okay, let's use this for an example. Do you understand how this works? We have different things that we're working on, and you got here because of this, this, and this. Or look, you need help, and you wouldn't have come to me, or you wouldn't need to go to a therapy if you had it all together. Like, I love that you said that. So if there's
mhm,
somebody in your life, she said it multiple times, ask questions and like get in depth. I know for me personally, I build relationships with people, and then once they start to open up, they just start telling me things. And then, like you said,
yeah,
I'm a very pattern person too. When I start noticing something, or I see like, man, you do this a lot, and we're not just talking like one or two times, we're talking 70, 80, 90 times. Like, I see your pattern, so I can probably predict if this or this happens, you're gonna do this, right? And so
mhm,
look at patterns, to answer her question. Ask follow-up questions. I'm really good with that. Like you said, so how does this make you feel? Or give me an example of this. Or, well, in this situation, what would you do? How would you feel? Would you be upset? Would it make you angry? And some people, something that's supposed to make you upset, they're just like, nah, I'm cool. And then you'd be like, well,
mhm.
that might be a red flag too. So questions are good. Examples are good.
Yep.
And I would say, honestly, Nina and Nelly, if you want, you and I can talk offline, and we can make a list or something, and we can send it out to anybody watching this. But I would say
Yeah,
my most important thing for me is just building a relationship, because
yeah,
like, people want to tell you their business, but they really don't, but they really do. And once you build that level of trust with them,
right.
again, that trust and that communication, they'll tell you everything. They'll cry in front of you. They'll talk
Mhm.
about their relationship problems, which I never really like hearing, because I'm like, Lord, please don't let this happen to me when I like get married. But at the same time, they feel
Yeah.
comfortable talking to you. So that means you
Mhm.
built trust and a good relationship with them. And that's just something I am like I said, not to boast, but I'm good at is I will talk to you. I will listen to you. If you need my help, I will offer it. If you just want to vent, I'm there to vent. But building a relationship is the best tip that I personally could give, because people want
Yeah.
to tell you their problems. And the crazy thing
Yeah.
is 80% of people don't care, and 20% is glad it's not them and it's you. So they'll listen to your problems all day and be like, woo, thank God it's not me. But if they have a good heart, they'll be like, okay,
Yeah.
Nelly, or okay, Mark, okay, John, what can I do to
Mhm.
help? And that's my answer to it. That's the best tip that I can give is communicate, build that high level of trust, and build that relationship with that person. And again, people want to tell you their problems.
Yeah.
They just got to see if they can trust you, because they may not trust a therapist. Or, you know, I was going to ask this question, like, is
Mhm.
therapy expensive? Like for me, I always thought therapy was like $800 a session. It's like, I'm not going to go pay somebody to go talk to him when I got cousins and friends and
No.
best friends. Like my best friend Donald heard me cry many a times my whole life. So I ain't paying him a dime, but I'm not going to a therapist to pay him $800. I can tell the homie, you know what I'm saying? So I don't know if
Yeah.
that's true. I know we don't have a lot of time, but is therapy expensive? Like, how does that work?
Um, if you have Medi-Cal, it isn't. If you just pay your copay, sometimes it's like 20 per session or something. If you have full-on Medi-Cal, it's free. Um, and if you have like your own plan, you still have to pay a fee, but it's not like crazy expensive.
Okay.
If you're paying like $100 a session, maybe you could look somewhere else because it doesn't have to be that expensive. And just kind of following along with what you said about building the relationship with Nina's um, a question is, after that, you want to make sure that you ask the person how they want you to show up for them. Because
Yes.
the same way that, like what gives me comfort is not going to be the same thing that's going to give you comfort. So you want to make sure that you're showing up for somebody the way they need you to, because your intention could be something, but the interpretation could be different depending on their
Yes.
mental status. So that is huge, because the moment you say something like, you're strong, I know you got this, you could be minimizing. I know that's not the intention, but that could be the interpretation that's being heard in the other end. So, and say, hey, like, I know you're strong, but right now it doesn't look like you're that strong. Like, let's talk about it. Like what's up? Because even with children, like, I don't know if we're about to have no time, but um, with your son, like we tell our kids, like, no, you got this. You're strong. Like you could do it. We have the intention of cheering them on and stuff, but they could be hearing you're not allowed to be weak. You're not allowed to show your feelings. You're not allowed to fail,
Call me a
right?
bad
So,
dad right now. You just called me
so
a bad dad right now.
for child and adults, right? Just ask, how do you want me to show up for you? And
I like
I'm
that.
very blessed and lucky to have my best friend for 15 years who's a clinician too. And it took us maybe like 10 years to figure out, like, how do you want me to show up for you? Because we're so different, right? But yes, follow up with that question. It makes the world of a difference. Don't just assume, ask.
Mic drop. Boom. That was perfect. All right, we probably got like 2 minutes. I always like to ask this at the end. Yeah, everybody, hey, bars right now. Bars, bars. We're going to have to do a part two of this. I know I say it every time. We're going to have to do a part two, but I always ask this, at the end of the day, because you don't look a day over 21. So I know you went to master's school. You must have did it at like 10, but you look young, you look vibrant, you're exercising, you're doing great as a mental health therapist, and I know you have a long life to live. But I always say, what's your dash? And what I mean is, after you live your life, you've done everything you need to do. You have a birth date and you have a date when you go to glory. But in between, there's a dash. I want people to know, how do you want people to remember Nelly? What do you want to be known for?
That I made a difference in their life. That's my mission right there. And before we leave, I'm doing a care package drive for the homeless in Skid Row. So we're going for 1,000 care packages. So guys, if you can support, by all means, like, it makes a world of a difference. I'm trying to make a difference, but I also need everybody's support. And
How do we
this is how we're
support?
gonna do it. Go on my page and my bio. The link to GoFundMe is there. You could DM me. I could send you an Amazon wish list link that we have, or you could add me and you could see like our flyer and show up the day of if you're around LA. So
Got it. And what day is
if you want to
happening?
come, It's the actual day of Thanksgiving in the morning.
Got
Yeah.
you. Oh, that might be fun. I'll have my baby boy with me, so we might have to pull up. Yeah, nice.
Okay.
So you guys go show up, go donate. Thank you so much. Again, I still got a gang of questions. I know I didn't even address all the questions that I sent you. So we'll definitely have a part two. But hey, I hope you guys got the bars that she was dropping. Ask the person. That's so important. Like, how do you want me to, what do you want me to be for you? Like, because I know I'm Mr. Black Superman. I'm Mr. Hey, suck it up. You got
Save
4
the
minutes to be
world.
sad. I know I shouldn't tell people that, but I'm like, you got 4 minutes to be sad, then you got to go for it. But they may not need that. They might just need a hug, or they might just need just somebody to care for them. So thank you, Nelly. I appreciate it so much. We'll be talking soon. We got some more books to read together. So thank you again. And I
Right.
appreciate you. All right. We'll talk later.
Thank you. Take care.
All right.
Bye.
So you guys heard it, man. Like I said, we had so much more to talk about. That was great. That was phenomenal. She was just giving me bars. She low key called me a bad dad. No, I'm just kidding. She didn't call me a bad dad. But again, I'm always learning. You know, I'm not perfect at this. I don't think I have everything on lock. I don't think I have my own mental perfectly fine, because I'm always faced with challenges. I'm always faced with different things in my own life. So I'm learning as well. And I do want to say, for the record, my mom is a phenomenal mother, phenomenal woman. She is my heartbeat. So whenever I do talk about her, I always want you guys to understand, we've had our own journey, we've had our own growth, but right now, man, I love her more than my own life, you know, and she loves her grandson, and I just love the relationship they have. So anytime I talk about, you know, anyone or any experience I have, I'm just telling you guys, man, life is real. We go through our own pains, our own struggles, but at the end of the day, we always overcome. So until next time, this has been Bigger and Better Business. And I know, I tell you, I'm going to bring you $1 billion life lessons. I'm telling you, the best life lesson that you can get right now is not only seek help for yourself, but if somebody is going through some level of trauma or issues, man, just be there for them. All right. Be the good friend, be the shoulder to lean on, learn their love language, learn how they speak, learn how they interact with people, and just be phenomenal. So until next time, be inspired. Always lead with love, because if you see somebody in a certain position and you can do something, you can act on their behalf to better that situation, you better choose to do the right thing. Show love, be supportive, and just be the best version of yourself. MC Inspires Black Superman, we are out.